Well, at the end of the day, I just don't understand the criticism about the prequels. It just, and to me, I think the thing that gets to me the most when I hear people criticize the prequels, and now with the new Disney movies coming out, um, you can't call yourself a fan of a franchise if you dislike two-thirds of the movies. Don't all these people. When I bring up Star Wars, people talk to me as if they're a Star Wars fan, but they have all these things they can't stand about the prequels and the Disney movies. If you don't like two-thirds of the Star Wars movies, you cannot call yourself a Star Wars fan. I'm sorry to say it. You just aren't. If you want to call yourself a fan of 4, 5, and 6, you're a fan of the Star Wars original trilogy. Hey, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how great the original trilogy was. They were fantastic movies, but we can agree to disagree on the prequels. I just think it's so nitpicky. Jar Jar, you brought up, he's only big in episode one, so okay, you can only complain about that for episode one. And if you're gonna complain about Jar Jar, you gotta complain about the Ewoks because the Ewoks in episode six annoyed me more than Jar Jar. I mean, let's be serious. This evil empire that's ruining everybody's lives for decades now all of a sudden is getting slaughtered by all these Care Bears that just came out of the woods. That's all that needed to happen this whole time. I mean, it's people just nitpick the prequels to no end. They're more complex. Yes, the story's a little more complicated. Maybe the characters were a little bit less relatable. Maybe the story arc was a little less direct. There were more characters to go off of. The original trilogy, it was much more simple. It's Luke, Han, Leia, Lando came in there at the end, but in the prequels, you got Anakin, Obi Wan, Yoda, Padme. You got all these characters that have big roles, and I don't. Maybe people just didn't fall for the characters as well in the prequels.
I specifically that Jar Jar thing came from like I specifically remember at the time there was a lot of controversy over the way Jar Jar spoke, and they thought he was like an Uncle Tom kind of figure. And I would never accuse George Lucas of being consciously racist. I think they were concerned that somehow he subconsciously drew from some sort of stereotype or something, which at that point, even if it was, like you said, it's not, it doesn't undermine the fabric of the quality of the story itself. The dungeons are not, they're not episode one. They're side characters. Some of the action happens to be centered on their world, and they play a role. And then yes, later he has Jar Jar be the one who votes emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine, which is, I guess, ironic. And I think Lucas did that deliberately. And that's the thing about especially the prequels, but also the original series, that Lucas wrote this with such depth, so many symbolic moments, so many threads that are tied together. It was really a work of pure genius when you get down to it, in any literary sense you can think of it as.